He did not come back when you were asking for care. He came back when you stopped making yourself available. That difference matters. At first, it looked like the moment you had been waiting for. His name appeared again. His tone was softer. He asked how you were, as if your distance had finally made him pay attention. Maybe he mentioned something small he remembered. Maybe he acted casual, like nothing serious had happened. And you felt your chest loosen. Not because everything was fixed, because the connection suddenly felt possible again. But look closely at the timing. He did not return after a clear change in how he treated you. He did not come back with a real conversation, an honest apology, or a steady plan. He came back after you stopped chasing, checking in, and offering him the comfort of knowing you were still there. Before that, he had been fine letting you carry the weight. You tried to understand the distance and adjusted your tone so you would not sound upset. Then you gave him more room until even your disappointment had to stay quiet. Then you pulled back. You did not make a speech. You did not announce a final goodbye. You simply stopped reaching for him the same way. You went through one evening without opening the same conversation again. You let his absence sit where it was, instead of covering it with another attempt. And that is when he noticed. Not necessarily because he suddenly understood your heart. Not necessarily because he was ready to care for you properly. Sometimes a man notices your absence because it threatens the access he had gotten used to. That is the trap. His return can feel like proof that he values you, when it may only prove that he noticed you were no longer chasing. The excuse sounded reasonable because it came with a little warmth. You told yourself he needed space to understand what you meant to him. You told yourself your absence finally made him see it. That explanation helped you breathe, because it turned his return into a sign that the connection was still alive. But look at the moment more plainly. He came back with interest, not responsibility. He wanted to know where you had been. He wanted to know whether you were still emotionally available. He asked careful questions, gave you enough softness to relax, and let you believe distance had taught him something. So you filled in the part he did not say. You heard, "I miss you," and translated it into, "I am ready now." When he said he had been thinking about you, you treated it like proof that he had faced what he did. His softer voice made it easier to ignore the part he never named, the hurt and the way he had left you carrying it alone. This excuse did not come from nowhere. It came from the nights when you wanted the waiting to mean something. It came from the part of you that needed a reason for why he could be so distant and still feel so important. If he only needed time, maybe you had not accepted too little. Maybe you had been patient. Maybe the hurt had a purpose. So when he returned, you did not ask the hardest question. You asked yourself how to keep the moment from disappearing. You became careful again. Not because he had earned that care, but because you were afraid that naming the truth would send him back into distance. You softened what you wanted. You acted calmer than you felt. You let his return count as progress, even though the same care was still missing. That was what the excuse protected. It let you keep tolerating a man who came back to feel wanted, without showing that he had learned how to care for you. The harder truth is this: his coming back did not give you peace. It gave you something else to manage. Now you were watching yourself again. You were measuring how much to say, how fast to answer, how honest to be. A simple message from him could change your afternoon. You could be at work, reading the same line twice, because part of your mind was with him, guessing whether this time was different. That is what made it costly. He had returned, but you were not more settled. You were more alert. You treated his attention like something fragile on the edge of a table. One wrong move, one serious question, one honest sentence about what he had done, and maybe it would fall again. So you became careful where care should have been mutual. You kept an evening loose, just in case he wanted to see you. You laughed lighter than you felt. You told a friend only half the story because saying the whole thing out loud would make it harder to defend him. Even your body knew something was off. Your stomach tightened before opening his message because you already knew the uncertainty was starting again. This is what was really happening. He had not built anything steady enough for you to rest in. He had only stepped back into the space you had finally stopped filling. And once he was there, you started working again to keep him there. A man can return and still leave you doing the emotional labor. He can miss your attention and still avoid your needs. He can want the comfort of knowing you are available without becoming someone who makes that availability feel safe. The cost was not only that he confused you. The cost was that his return made you betray your own relief. You had begun to feel what life was like when you were no longer chasing him. Then he came back, and your days started adjusting around the possibility that he might stay. There is a reason you wanted to believe his return meant something deeper. For a while, you had been living with the painful idea that maybe he could leave you alone and feel nothing. That thought was hard to carry. It made the whole connection feel one-sided. It made you wonder if you had imagined the closeness, the long talks, the way he looked at you, the parts of him that seemed honest when he was present. So when he came back, it gave you relief from a fear you had not wanted to say out loud. His return allowed you to believe that you had mattered, that he had noticed your absence, and that the distance had affected him too. That is why it was easy to soften. Not because you were blind, because his return touched the exact place that had been hurting. It answered the question you were quietly asking while you tried to act normal. Did my absence affect him at all? And when it seemed like it did, you wanted to treat that as proof of care. But being affected by your absence is not the same as being ready to treat you well. A man can feel the loss of your attention and still not be prepared to give you steady effort. He can miss the way you made him feel and still avoid the conversation that would require him to grow up. That is the part you were trying not to separate. You remembered the good moments because they were real enough to confuse you. Maybe he did laugh with you in a way that felt unforced. Maybe there were days when he listened, showed up, and made you feel chosen. Those moments explain why you hesitated. They do not erase what happened when caring required consistency. Your heart was not wrong for wanting the return to mean love. But the question was never only whether he came back. The question was what he came back able to give, and whether his presence became livable, reliable, and enough. The step forward is not to punish him for coming back. It is to stop rewarding a return before it becomes real care. When he appears again, the old habit will want to move fast. You may feel the pull to answer warmly, clear your evening, make the conversation easy, and show him there is still a place for him. That is the exact place where the trap begins again. One way to let his return prove itself is to keep the ordinary life you had already built. This does not require a speech, a test, or coldness. It begins with a simple pause before your life starts moving around him again. If he asks to see you when you already have plans, those plans do not need to disappear. Dinner with someone can remain dinner. A quiet evening can remain yours. The work you intended to finish does not need to be pushed aside simply because his name appeared again. Then you can watch what he does next. A man who has come back with care can handle a life that does not drop everything for him. He can speak clearly, make a plan and respect it, and talk about what happened without making you feel guilty for noticing it. A man who only missed the easy access he had to you will usually show it there. He will push for the old ease. He will act confused when you are not instantly open. He may call you different, distant, or hard to read, because he was used to your fear doing the work for him. That moment gives you information. You do not have to decide your whole future from one message or one visit. You only have to stop treating his return as the answer. Let his behavior after he returns answer the question. Because the thing that kept you stuck was not only that he came back, it was that you gave him the same place in your life before he showed he could treat it differently. This time, his return does not decide how much access he gets. His behavior does.